You're listening to the UnSafe Bible with Pastor Ken Brown.
For the Lord of hosts has planned, as it says in verse 27, and who can frustrate it? And as for his stretched out hand, who can turn it back? God has purposed, he has decreed that the great end-time oppressor of his people, the beast of Revelation 13:1, also referred to as the Assyrian, will be destroyed, and he'll be destroyed on the hills of Israel, just like Assyria was.
Who can turn God's hand away from his purposes? Certainly, Pastor Ken's reminder today is great news. God has purposed in his heart to destroy Satan on the hills of Israel one day. It's hard to imagine what an earth reconciled to God will be like. We're so used to living in a world full of corruption. But God promises to bring his kingdom fully to the earth. What a day that will be. We can trust God to do these things. Make a note to not forget that God sees the end from the beginning and knows what he's doing. Well, let's join Pastor Ken in the book of Isaiah chapter 37 as he continues his message, Assyria, Philistia, Moab.
If we look at Isaiah 37, where we see it actually happen, verses 33 to 38, therefore, thus says the Lord concerning the king of Assyria. Now, when we get to there, I'll give you more detail behind what's actually happening historically at this point. He will not come to this city or shoot an arrow there. He'll not come before it with a shield or throw up a siege ramp against it. By the way that he came, by the same he'll return, and he'll not come to this city, declares the Lord. For I will defend this city to save it for my own sake and my servant David's sake. Then the angel of the Lord went out and struck 185,000 in the camp of the Assyrians. And when men arose early in the morning, behold, all these were dead. Almost sounds like one of the things that some special forces units do. The Turks were really good at this, and so are the Gurkhas, where they would sneak into a camp at night, go into a tent where there were two men, slice the throat of one, leave the other one alive, and leave. They may have been like that, don't know. But we also know he's going to mangle them and then stomp on their corpses. So, we don't know what exactly they died from, but we don't read anywhere that they packed up and took all these guys with them. They just left. And as a result, Israel took spoil from Assyria. Behold, all of these were dead. So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, departed and returned home and lived at Nineveh. And it came about that while he was worshiping in the house of Nisroch, his god, that Adrammelech and Sharezer, his sons, killed him with the sword. Of course they would. He had no more reputation. He had just lost his army to Judah at night. So he was toast in terms of his reputation as a king. Then they escaped to the land of Ararat. In other words, they went north into Turkey. And Esarhaddon, his son, became king in his place. In 701 BC, just as prophesied, Yahweh liberated Judah from Assyria and removed the yoke. Verses 24 to 26 now. We have to I keep bringing that in because we can get the whole thought. The Lord of hosts has sworn, surely, just as I've intended, so it has happened, and just as I've planned, so it'll stand, to break Assyria in my land, and I will trample him on my mountains. Then his yoke will be removed from them and his burden removed from their shoulder. This is the plan devised against the whole earth, and this is the hand that stretched out against all the nations. There's a little more to this plan than just a local empire being dealt with. He's going to set the nations free of Assyrian oppression as well. God's purpose is to liberate Jerusalem from the Assyrian siege, but in a wider sense, to liberate all the nations of that day from the Assyrian yoke of oppression, which did happen in 612 BC when Nineveh fell. But this is also pointing to another event when the Assyrian will be destroyed on the hills of Israel at the Battle of Armageddon, setting all the nations free from his oppression. His doing this for the nations concerning Assyria shows that he will do this for the nations concerning Babylon in the future. And as with Babylon having a future component being reflected in the prophecy talking about a deliverance for the world at the end of the age, the message for Assyria reflects the same thing. Per Isaiah 10:24, we learned that is a name of the Antichrist. He's referred to as the Assyrian. So when you start seeing this, you go, okay, Assyria, which one? And it's both of them, actually. By having this section following right after the section dealing with Babylon, Isaiah, through the Holy Spirit, tying with the events regarding Babylon in Revelation 18 and 19. Or as Dr. McGee says, the Assyrian represents the king that's coming from the north. Verses 19 to 27 give a detailed account of the coming judgment of Babylon and all that it represents, and it's only been partially fulfilled in the past. It'll be fulfilled in the future quite literally. We can look forward to this. For the Lord of hosts has planned, as it says in verse 27, and who can frustrate it? And as for his stretched out hand, who can turn it back? God has purposed, he has decreed that the great end-time oppressor of his people, the beast of Revelation 13:1, also referred to as the Assyrian, will be destroyed, and he'll be destroyed on the hills of Israel, just like Assyria was. Daniel 11:45 and Revelation 19:19 and 20 points that his yoke will be lifted from God's people, the people of Israel. Just as the Assyrian and his kingdom will come under God's judgment, even so the other evil kings of the earth and their kingdoms will also come under God's judgment. No one can turn God from his purpose. They can't. So here with Assyria, we see a near fulfillment, literally, and a far fulfillment, and that too will be fulfilled literally. So that finishes the oracle for Babylon. So now we have the oracle against Philistia. Now remember, Philistia is 5 city-states. Okay, it's not a country. It's 5 big cities that kind of join together, and it's city-states. Verses 28 and 29 of Isaiah 14. In the year that King Ahaz died, so we know exactly the timing. It's right there for us. This oracle came. Do not rejoice, O Philistia, all of you, because the rod that struck you is broken. For from the serpent's root a viper will come out, and its fruit will be a flying serpent. There are a number of commentaries that try to create all kinds of imagery with those pictures, but it's a lot simpler if you just read it in context. Unlike the first oracle against Babylon, where we were not given specific timing information, the Holy Spirit wants us to know the when here. He wants us to know what's the timing of the oracle. Remember King Ahaz? Remember what a great king he was? He was a miserable king. He was the one who refused to believe Yahweh and actually went out of his way to offend him any way that he could. We covered King Ahaz earlier in our study of Isaiah, and for the whole story, go back to our study dealing with King Ahaz the lily-livered, because he's a chicken. This oracle starts off with really good news for everybody but Ahaz. Ahaz is dead. That's good news for everybody except King Ahaz and those who were serving him. It was his refusal of the way of faith and his decision to Judah's fortunes, he tried to tie it all to Assyria, that for the prophet actually ended the Davidic dynasty as it had been known. Because we talked about that when we were talking about Ahaz. So now we're dealing with the perennial thorn in the flesh for Israel and Judah, the 5 city-states known as Philistia, okay? Or Philistines. Ahaz thought he was cutting a deal with Assyria, but when you see the actual record written by Tiglath-Pileser III, he's the emperor of Assyria, he says, I received the tribute of Ahaz of Judah. He didn't say it was a payment. He said it was tribute. He's now a vassal, and he's doing what vassals should do, paying him anything they want. And Ahaz actually cleaned out the treasury of the temple and also some of the gold in the temple and sent it off to Tiglath-Pileser. He literally liquidated the temple and royal assets in order to hire the Assyrian king. But it was not a payment, it was tribute. He didn't do what he thought he would do. So let's take a look at the cities of Philistia, who are a thorn in the side of Assyria too. There are 5 cities. They have their own way of doing things. Occasionally they gather together and do stuff as one, but sometimes it'll be one city versus another. So in 734 BC, about the time near when the first oracle was written, but now we know we're in 715 BC. In 734 BC, Gath, the same Gath Goliath was from, okay, that Gath, they refused to pay tribute. So Assyria came and took what they wanted. They sacked it. Okay, 720 BC, just 14 years later, Philistia joined with Egypt against Assyria. Bad decision. Sargon II defeated Egypt. And then he conquered Ashkelon and Gath, those poor people in Gath. 14 years after now they got it again. So fast forward another 5 years. We're in 715 BC. King Ahaz has died. He was a collaborator with Assyria. So the Philistines saw this as an opportunity to approach the new king, Hezekiah, and see if he'll join in a rebellion. Hezekiah, though, listens to what Isaiah says and refuses to do so, basically leaving the city-states of Philistia hanging in the breeze. In 711 BC, just a few years later, Ashdod, which is over near Gaza on the Mediterranean, they revolt. So Sargon comes in again, he invades, and he follows by attacking all the Philistine cities. And then Ashkelon rebelled in 705. So Sennacherib finally comes in 701, and he deals with the Philistine problem. And once he's done with the Philistines, then he moves from the south to the north to deal with Judah, thinking, okay, you're just one more. I'll take care of you too. Now, there's confusion among some scholars regarding the actual date of Ahaz's death. I don't think there is, because in 2 Kings 18:13 it says, in the 14th year of King Hezekiah, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against all the fortified cities of Judah and took them. We know that was 701 BC. We know that. So add 14 years to it, and then you do the year of accession is usually an additional year not counted. So we're in 715, 716 BC. I have no problem with it. I think that's a good year and good date. So at the same time of Ahaz's death, Philistia received or perceived that there was a weakness in the Assyrians at that time. Now, I was trying to see whether or not that time period also coincided with the ministry of Jonah going on in Nineveh. It may have, I don't know. I don't know if maybe the weakness was they had repented. It was somewhere in that same time frame. But there was a perceived weakness in the Assyrians, and the Philistines wanted to secure an alliance with Judah to take advantage of this and then rebel as a unified voice against Assyria. Okay, remember, that's what started off the problem with the northern kingdom and with Syria. They wanted to do the same thing. But the purpose of the oracles is to show how alliances with anyone for Judah is not in Yahweh's will. You're not supposed to ally with anyone at all. So the sharp contrast between the fate of Philistia and the safe stronghold of Zion that we see here in these verses gives an important message for Judah under King Hezekiah. It basically says, you don't need to join up with these guys because it's not going to mean anything. It's going to be in vain. Isaiah is warning the people of Philistia. He's actually telling them, hey, wait a minute, the rod is broken. Assyria at present appears to be weak. It's not a permanent condition. For from the serpent's root, a viper will come out, and its fruit will be a flying serpent. In other words, it's going to be worse. But he's basically drawing a picture for them. Says, you think you've got a problem now, you're going to have a worse problem. Assyria will become a problem for them again. The Assyrian dragon is not dead. It was just coming to its full strength in Sargon. And then Sennacherib and Esarhaddon, and any attempt to stand against it is just, it's futile, unless you got the Lord with you. Verse 30, those who are most helpless will eat, and the needy will lie down in security. I will destroy your root with famine, and it will kill off your survivors. The newly empowered and more aggressive Assyria would leave behind only the poorest as survivors. That's what's going to be left behind. Only the poorest of the people are going to survive the coming enemy, and most of them are going to starve or be slaughtered. And this is almost a picture also of what's going to be happening in the land of Israel in the last days as the army of the beast begins to move through. Isaiah 14, verses 31 and 32. So here's the warning. Wail, O gate, cry, O city, melt away, O Philistia, all of you. For smoke comes from the north, and there's no straggler in his ranks. How then will one answer the messengers of the nation, that the Lord has founded Zion, and the afflicted of his people will seek refuge in it? Now, when they say gates, the first thing I think about is, you remember a guy by the name of Samson? Samson had a little problem in Gaza, and he took the gates of the city and then walked 39 miles with them and then dropped them on top of a hill at 927 feet above sea level. Now, this is from the Gaza Strip at sea level. So he goes 39 miles with these gates. When a gate is referenced for Philistia, we're talking, it's a reference to the cities, the 5 city-states. And they were well known. So to mention a gate is to mention a city. One city here cries as a representative for all the others. All of Philistia, the entirety of the 5 city-states, is destroyed. It's dissolved. It's gone. Smoke comes from the north, okay? Well, the smoke would only be the sign of the attacker moving south. So as they finish one city, because that's how they're aligned in Philistia, as one city starts to burn, they move to the next city. So they're actually seeing the destruction coming towards them, because the Assyrians practiced a scorched earth type of attack. Babylon did the same thing too, by the way. There's only one place that they can go to for protection. There's only one place that's safe. That's Zion. That's the only place that's safe for them. When they ask about Zion, the answer to the messengers of the nation will be told, it's safe because the Lord founded Zion, and the afflicted of his people will seek refuge in it. In this prophecy, we're being taught that the purposes of God will be fulfilled. Assyria, the present threatening foe, will be destroyed. We know that. We saw that earlier. And so will Babylon, the bigger foe that's coming. The type of Antichrist will be also completely brought to ruin. So when they see Assyria perish, Philistia may think that it's time for rejoicing, in which she may again direct attention towards Judah and attack Judah. Judah, however, is the nation of God, and an enemy will come against Philistia far greater than the Assyrians, so that Philistia in her entirety will be destroyed. That's their warning. That's what's going to happen to them. So now we come to chapter 15, and this is the oracle against Moab. Chapter 15 and chapter 16 have a single theme. They're a prophecy of impending disaster on Moab, and they're also going to be pointing to the Great Tribulation in the far future. The people of Moab, now Moab, of course, is to the east side of the Dead Sea. And the people of Moab are descendants of Lot and his oldest daughter. So they're east of Israel, east of the Dead Sea, along the southern portion of the Dead Sea. In fact, there's a road that goes right through it. It goes through Edom, Moab, the nations of Israel. They had 2 tribes on that side, Reuben and Gad, and Ammon. And it's called the King's Highway. It was basically an avenue of assault and attack for numerous kings. The Egyptians would go north, the Assyrians would go south, the Babylonians would go south. It's still there today. They actually built a freeway that goes along it. The people of Moab, though, have a problem. By the way, the people of Ammon, which is north, that name is repeated today as the capital of Jordan is Ammon. Ammon. They're the descendants of Lot and his younger daughter. So Reuben and Gad, who used to be on that side, have disappeared, and Moab has actually moved north into their territory and expanded their territory. Ammon has expanded theirs a little bit too. But you see the Assyrian Empire stretches all the way down to Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gaza. That's where they were having that problem with the fine folks in Philistia. But then Moab is off to the east side of the Dead Sea, and then Edom is south of that. So the oracle against Moab does not have a specific time indicated in it. Now, we had a specific time for the one for Philistia. Now, this may be in the period between 715 and 711 BC, but that's a guess. I mean, we really don't know. And the enemy is not truly identified here either. So it could be the Assyrians, it could be the Babylonians. We just know they're going to be destroyed. By this time, though, 715 to 711, Assyria had taken most of the northern kingdom into exile. They were gone. Syria was in exile. The east side of Jordan, which had been previously occupied by Reuben and Gad, was empty. So the Moabites reestablished their territory and moved into it. They took over those cities north of the Arnon River. And that's what it looks like when Isaiah is prophesying, okay? So we're in chapter 15, verse 1. The oracle concerning Moab. Surely in a night, Ar of Moab is devastated and ruined. That's the name of a city. It's not a city of pirates where I'll go, Ar. It's actually the name of the city, Ar, named after Arnon, the river, okay? Surely in a night, Kir of Moab is devastated and ruined. So Isaiah begins by recounting a sneak attack that takes place at night, possibly from Assyria, in violation of the normal rules of war as they were practiced at that time, against two major cities of Moab, Ar and Kir, and they're both going to fall the same night. They'll both be destroyed the same night. Now, we don't know with certainty where these two cities are. They could be 25 miles apart. They could be 6 miles apart. We're not real sure. The verse states, though, that in a single night, the two chief cities of Moab are carried by assault and destroyed and ruined. They're brought to a dead silence. Ar, Moab, this is the capital. It's on the south side of the river Arnon. Arnon, that's why it was called Ar. Kir is possibly a few miles from Ar. That's one view of it. It was renowned for its military strength, and the ruins have been identified as Kirak today. That's what it's called, as Kirak. The fall of these two cities sealed the doom of Moab. The ruins of Ar. The city was burned, obviously. This is right there near the Arnon River. Today it's called Balu. And then Kirak. Kir sat on top of a hill, and a lot of the stones that were in Kir have been reused by the Ottoman Empire when they built that castle. So if you take a look at some of the stones, you'll actually see images of Chemosh and several other things in the rock, in the stone. It's still there today because they reused it. But that castle was not Kir. It was a great place for a fortress, and the Ottoman Empire did the same thing with it. But that's Kirak today. Those are the two places that are destroyed. Ar is a city marking the traditional northern boundary of Moab, and Kur is Kir Hareseth. That's in the Central Plateau. That's if you say it's 25 miles away. I don't think so. I think the archaeology tends to point to the closer to location.
It's true that some of us are introverts and some of us are extroverts. But did you know Jesus designed us to function best when we're part of a community? We all have God-given gifts and abilities that, when used rightly and in conjunction with others, the effect for the kingdom of God will be profound. It will reach many who are lost and hurting. So, listeners, if you don't have a community that you belong to, won't you consider getting connected with ours? Or at least learning what we believe and why? The UnsafeBible.com has all that information, and we'd encourage you to read what's written there and then spend some time in prayer. The Unsafe Bible is a radio ministry based out of Jupiter, Florida, and we're so glad that you've paused long enough to listen to today's message from Pastor Ken. If you like what you heard today, and we've piqued your curiosity. Why don't you satisfy it by checking out all the other messages we have for you? Go to the unsafebible.com and click on the Media tab. That's the direct link to our archive. We trust that what you find there will challenge and grow your faith. While you're there, be sure to check out the other ways to stay connected with what's happening here at Calvary Chapel, Martin County. Would you rather enjoy connecting through social media? You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Pick your favorite platform, or utilize all three. We trust that today's message from Isaiah spoke to your heart and challenged the parts of you that aren't looking like Jesus. Thanks for listening to the UnSafe Bible.